Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to do something that sounds a little like magic. We're going to teach a silent computer program how to have a conversation. We'll see how a simple file of C code can learn to talk to us, and maybe even more importantly, how it can learn to listen. So let's start with the big question, right? A C program, when you get right down to it, is just a list of instructions. It can be a whiz at math, it can handle all sorts of logic, but it's kind of trapped in its own little world. So how does it break out? How do we give it information, and how does it tell us what it's figured out? Okay, here's our game plan for getting this done. First, we're going to really understand this communication problem. Then, we'll crack open the C toolkit that gives us the solution. After that, we'll teach our program how to talk, and then how to listen, and finally, we'll put all the pieces together and watch a real interactive conversation happen. All right, Section 1, the communication problem. Before we can even think about solving it, we have to appreciate just how isolated a C program really is right out of the box. You know, you can almost think of it like a brain in a jar. It's in there, capable of all this incredible thinking, but it's totally cut off from the world. It has no mouth to speak, no ears to hear. It's just a silent genius. To build that bridge to the outside, we need to give it some very specific tools. So, how do we give our program that voice and those ears? Well, in the world of C, the answer is found in something called a header file. This is basically where we find all the special functions that unlock communication. A header file is basically an instruction manual for your compiler. It doesn't have the tools themselves, but it tells the compiler what the tools are called and exactly how to use them. Without this manual, if you told your program to print something, the compiler would have no idea what you're talking about. And you give your program access to this manual with this one simple line right at the top of your code. This #include command, well, it's called a preprocessor directive. That's just a fancy way of saying it tells the compiler to literally copy and paste the entire instruction manual into your code before it even starts compiling. And the specific manual we need for our little chat is standio.h. Standio is short for Standard Input and Output, which, hey, is exactly what we're trying to do. This one file is the key that unlocks pretty much all basic communication in C. Okay, now that we have our toolkit, let's pull out the first tool. It's time to finally give our program a voice. The main tool for making your program talk or display text on the screen is a function called printf, or print formatted, and that formatted part is what makes it so incredibly useful. Its entire purpose in life is to take a string of text, mix in the values from any variables you want, and then send that finished, formatted result to the screen for you to read. This function is your program's mouth. So let's see how this actually works. Take a look at the %d in the code. Think of that as a placeholder. It tells printf, hey, heads up, an integer value is going to go right here. The function then grabs the number 25 from the end and just slots it right into that spot. And that little /n at the end, that's just a special character that tells the computer to move the cursor down to a new line after it's done printing. Awesome, our program can talk. But, a monologue is not a conversation. Now we need to teach it the other half, how to listen. For that, we grab another tool from our standio.h toolkit, the scanf function. So if printf is for printing, you can think of scanf as being for scanning, as in scanning and reading input from the user. Now this is cool. When your program gets to a scanf function, everything just stops. It literally pauses everything and waits for you, the user, to type something and hit enter. This function is your program's ears. Using scanf is a clear two-step process. First, just like with printf, you use a format specifier, like %d, to tell it what kind of data you're expecting. Are you listening for a number, a letter, a whole word? Then, and this part is absolutely crucial, you have to tell it where to put the data it hears. You do that by giving it the memory address of a variable, which is what that little ampersand symbol, and, does right before the variable name. So now we have the two key building blocks, a mouth, printf, and a pair of ears, scanf. The real magic happens when we see how these two work together to create an actual conversation. And this right here is the fundamental rhythm of interaction. The program talks first, using printf to ask a question. Then it goes into listening mode with scanf, waiting for your answer so it can use that information. So when you actually run a program like this is the first thing you'll see. It's the output from that printf statement. And that little blinking cursor you see after the colon, that's the program paused, listening,
all thanks to ScanF, just waiting for you to say something.
And then, after you've given it your name and age, a final print-of statement springs into action. It takes the data that ScanF carefully listened to and stored away, and it weaves that data into a brand new, personalized message. The conversation is complete. The program listened to you, and now it's talking back, using the very information you gave it. Pretty neat, huh? To make all this a little easier to keep straight, here is a super handy cheat sheet. These are the most common format specifiers you're going to use all the time with both printf and scanf. You'll get to know %d for integers, %f for decimals, and %s for strings like they're old friends. So what's the big takeaway here? Well, with just two simple functions, printf and scanf, and by including one single file, you've unlocked the foundation of all user interaction in C. You've given a silent, isolated program a voice and a way to hear. So the only real question left is, what kind of conversations are you going to build next?